I had my top surgery last Tuesday, exactly a week ago, on June the 20th, 2023. And I wanted to talk about it and the preceding week. I didn't film anything for that just because I was resting and fucking tired. So this is just going to be a little discussion, I guess. But I wanted to check in with y'all and let you know that I'm doing good and I'm moving around and that everything went honestly better than expected. So the day of the surgery, my family and I drove down like a couple hours early to the hospital at the request of the doctor. And we signed in everything, and I was brought back to the room where they like get your IV in and get you in your fancy gown and shit. I personally had never really had a major surgery before, nor had I like gone with somebody to a major surgery before. So like this was all new experiences, and it's pretty scary, but like not in the way that I expected. So what I mean is I personally didn't feel a lot of anxiety about the procedure itself. In my head I was like, well, I'm going to be asleep and then I'm going to wake up. From my perspective, like my mom and my partner waiting outside for 4 hours straight, that sounded really boring and really scary. Whereas me being unconscious while someone does something it didn't freak me out. I didn't have to do anything per se, so I was like, okay, this is fine. But once they take you back to that room to get your IV, they separated me from my family. So my family came back before I went back to the procedure. But to get me in my IV and stuff, they first brought me by myself. Leaving my mom was like leaving my mom for the first time when I like went to school. Like I was like, what? What do you mean she can't come? I was like immediately anxious about just being alone. All of the nurses, everybody I interacted with the whole time was like crazy, crazy nice. Like truly, like really just wonderful, kind people. I mean, I guess if you're working around the operating room, you're used to people being nervous. So I guess they're used to like, making people feel better and doing whatever. But I just felt really like cared for. Like people were joking with me. I was like talking about my cat, like they were very well versed in making people feel comfortable and at home. Even though you're like sitting naked in like a hospital gown and you have an IV and then it's not particularly comfortable. So I got my IV in, I'm in my gown, my partner and my mom can come back, and like 4 people come and visit you. Like you have to meet with the anesthesiologist, and you have to meet with like the nurse, and then the surgeon comes and checks in with you, and then like the anesthesia tech comes in and checks it. Like it was like straight up like 5 people, and then they're like, okay, like you're ready to go. So I say goodbye to my mom, I say goodbye to my partner, and this like incredibly nice lady. Now, as I said, everybody that I interacted with was incredibly, incredibly nice. This one lady, she was the lady who was taking me back into the operating room. And I can only assume that on purpose, they choose somebody who's really fantastic at making somebody feel comfortable, because like this lady was fantastic. I felt immediately comfortable. She's like, okay, time to get your tequila shot. And I started laughing. She's like, it's happy hour somewhere, hun. Like, you're going to be good. She brings me into the room. She's like, okay, this is how I want you to lay. Like, this is what we're going to be doing. Like, everything that happened in the operating room while I was conscious, they were telling me was going to happen, which I thought was like crazy helpful. When they were putting like a blood pressure cuff on me, they were telling me that's what they were doing. They were like, this is like, kind of the pain that you're going to feel. They were like, okay, like now, like I'm going to be putting like anesthesia over this mask. Like take really deep breaths for me. Like you should feel woozy at this time. Like everything was like consistently explained in like a really soothing voice. Like they were like talking to a spooked horse, and I was like, this is making me feel so much better. So eventually I lost consciousness, and when I woke up, it's like funny because I know that like 3 hours passed between me losing consciousness and me waking up, But what I remember is literally, I lose consciousness, and then I wake up, and there's this very nice man at a computer next to me asking how I'm doing. And so I'd never been, the only time I was under anesthesia previous, or any sort of anesthesia previously, was my wisdom teeth removal. I don't remember it being so intense, but then again, a wisdom teeth removal is probably much quicker than top surgery. So I wake up, I don't feel any pain. I feel like incredibly tired. So like incredibly tired. Like if you've ever been so tired that like every time you blink, you're like falling asleep a little bit, like that level. And after like 5 minutes, I kind of got over that. I was able to be more lucid. I think also like he was speaking to me the entire time. So it wasn't just like he saw that I was coming to consciousness and like started actively talking to me to like turn my brain on. So my brain's turning on. I'm responding to him. We end up getting up on, this is, okay. I guess like mark number 1, when you become conscious after surgery, what I have discovered, at least for me personally, if you have anxiety, you will not have anxiety anymore. Or rather, I did not have anxiety anymore. I can completely understand why stoners are stoners if they feel this way all the time. Like, not so much that, like, I want to get into weed. My control freak nature is like, but I get it, because the first 2 days after surgery, anything could have happened. Like, we could have gone into nuclear war, and I would have been kind of fine about it. Anyone could have done anything, and I would have been fine. But, like, my mom would have been like, let's get into the stranger's car. Okay. Like, it was just, I didn't give a single fuck. So the nurse is asking me all these questions. He's like, how are you feeling? I'm like, I'm feeling absolutely fine. Now, up until this point, you're asked not to eat before the surgery. So I was asked not to eat after, like, midnight the day before. So I hadn't eaten since like 7 p.m. and it's now 3 p.m. the next day, right? And freaking the nurse gives me some saltine crackers and a little can of ginger ale, and it is straight up the best meal I've ever had. I had like 5 packets of saltine crackers. And he was like, oh, do you want some more? And I was literally like, hell yes. Like, any sort of filter, I don't have a lot of filter to begin with. Any sort of filter that I did have was absolutely destroyed by my fucking excitement about having food. I was in heaven. And I was laughing because one time I drove my mom to do her colonoscopy. And when she had come out of anesthesia, they had given her cranberry juice. And she responded like this was the fucking best thing ever. Like, she was so excited to get cranberry juice. And I was like, Mom, why are you behaving like, I get it now. Listen, you're going to get those fucking crackers and that juice, and it's going to be the fucking best thing ever. I don't know what it's freaking great. Somebody decides to give you food, and you're like, hell yes. So I went with that guy. He, like, walked me through, like, he pulled me out of unconsciousness. Like, he kept me awake. And he's like, okay, I'm going to pass you off to another nurse. She's going to get you set. She's going to get your family back here. You've been cleared to go home. So I waited for my family to come. They said hi. I got more saltine crackers. Feeling super great about that. They checked up on me. We went through this aftercare packet of what happens. I would definitely say, truly, you really do need someone with you. Not even, I mean, one, because I physically would not have been able to drive out of there, but if you like truly cannot find someone to look after you for the full week, at least the first 3 or 4 days. After that, I was incredibly tired, but I was still a little bit more mobile. But, like, the anesthesia can really, like, boot you. So they were giving the, like, whole care packet instruction, for example, and I, like, don't remember any of it. I remember being there. I do not remember anything this woman said to me. So it was really important, one, that it was all written down, but two, that, like, for the first couple days especially, like, I had people who actually had paid attention initially they were just like handing me the drugs that I needed and, making sure that I had water. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was sitting there like a lump, and my mom and my partner were making sure that I was alive. So I drove home. I apparently was pretty talkative. I don't really remember the conversation, but I do remember the driving home. For the first 2 days, really, that was kind of it. Like, you're like straight chilling, and you really can't do shit. The first night, my mom asked me if I could open the Tylenol bottle, and I could not. So that was fun. Like, you're just going to be sitting in a chair. It'll get better. I think, especially like day 3, the anesthesia wore off enough that I could do stuff. Before then, I was cruising. I was not a functioning member of society at that time. Overall, with my week of essentially being bedridden, I would say it went like incredibly well. So I was expecting like a certain level of pain, a certain level of discomfort that I really like did not feel. And initially, like the first couple of days, I thought that once the anesthesia wore off, maybe I would feel a level of discomfort. And like I truly did not. I mean, there are certain things that are uncomfortable, period, just because they're uncomfortable. None of them like hurt particularly bad. It's just uncomfortable. Like the drains, everyone says it. The drains are definitely the most uncomfortable part of the first week, just because like they're in your body and they get like moved around, and you're not really thinking about them because they're not attached to you. Like they have no nervous system, but they're attached to you so they can get stuck on doorknobs and shit. And it makes like sleeping weird, and yeah, it's just like a level of discomfort. Coughing becomes a problem, sneezing becomes a problem. So really what I had done is I had planned a couple of books. I saved The New Legend of Zelda for this time. I started watching a new show with my mom. Like, I tried to make everything kind of new, everything kind of fun, so that when there was stuff for me to do while I was convalescing on the couch. But overall, like, the pain was really minimal, thank fuck. I was able to handle it with just Tylenol and Advil. Yesterday was my after appointment, where they took the tubes out and everything looked fine. So now I'm wearing a chest binder to keep my nipples hydrated and everything kind of like together. And I showered this morning, which was like the fucking best thing. I think one of the things that I'm noticing is that my brain isn't like 100% online. It's every day it's getting significantly better. Like today, I feel like 95% myself. But there's like a level of distractibility that's still there. Now, I do have ADHD, so it could be that. But it's more distractible than I usually am. So I'm glad for the second week off from work, just to kind of reacclimate myself. Also because getting ready took significantly longer than it usually does. Like showering takes longer, doing all the care stuff takes longer. Overall, I think that's, my first week was like excellent. I was really worried that I was going to be in a lot of pain, and I wasn't, and I'm really, really grateful for that. And I'm grateful for the procedure. Right now, my biggest symptom, you keep getting new symptoms, I've discovered. My biggest symptom right now is that I'm exceptionally bloated in the tummy, like crazy bloated. And it makes me uncomfortable because I don't know like what my body looks like, if that makes sense. Like I'm like, I know that this isn't how my tummy looks, but maybe it is how my tummy looks because I've never really seen my tummy without my chest. You know what I mean? So like that's a happy little body dysmorphia to go on top of the new released body dysphoria. And the body euphoria is amazing. It took like literally no time for my brain to acclimate to the new situation. Like, I think my body is still catching up where my brain is like, oh yes, this is how it was supposed to be, which I think is amazing. It's amazing proof of how transness works, I think, in the sense of it's hard to describe to somebody who's never felt it, gender dysphoria. I mean, in the sense of like, I feel like with my chest dysphoria, a lot of it was exceptionally subliminal. Like, a lot of it was my brain thinking I looked one way, and then when I visually realized that I didn't, being shocked every single time. So like every time I passed the mirror, every time I brushed up against a wall, or every time I like put on a shirt, like I was shocked. Like there was just a little shock in my brain. And now it's not there. But it's hard to explain that shock when somebody's never really felt it, I feel. It's also hard to explain how that shock can wear you down over time. Because it's like a constant surprise. Like it feels like the same amount of surprise every time. And the hate and the confusion is the same amount every time. Like it's always a surprise. It's kind of like, or at least my brain kind of treated it like how babies don't have like object permanence. Like my body was like, my boobs don't exist unless I can see them, and then every time I saw them it was devastating. So now that that's off the table, I don't feel that, which is very confusing. Now, of course, I still feel swollen. I still feel very aware of my chest. So I'm excited to see how the dysphoria progresses once that feeling ends as well. And once I feel not bloated and gross and recently showered, but having not showered for a week, like, I am excited to see how it feels to be normal and like this. So far, it's already been really, really good. Right now, I feel more aware of the injury, I guess. Like my brain is like, you are injured. Whereas like last week, I was conscious of it, but I couldn't feel it as much. But I think like they took the bandages like off of my scars. And I think also just the visualization of my, like actually seeing them for the first time indicates like your brain is like, oh, you're injured. And your body's like, yes, that's what I was telling you. Because before then, you can't really, like, I really can't feel much of my chest at all. And so, like, for all I know, like, a fucking octopus could have been in there, and they, like, unwrap me in the surgery room, and then, like, the octopus just comes out and everyone starts screaming. Like, it's not, like, there's no, like, visual confirmation that the titties are gone. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's like a Schrodinger's titties thing. And so when they're off, when like all the bandages are off and you see it, you clock it with your eyes, your brain can click it into place, or my brain clicked it into place, and I was like, oh, they are gone, but also you look incredibly injured and bruised, which is true. And it means that my body is like, I mean, my body has been aware that I've been incredibly injured and bruised, but I think, like, my conscious mind was like, oh, you're right, girl. And so now we're all on the same page. Which means that it's just a general discomfort, but otherwise I'm happy. I'm happy to be more mobile. Every day it's like a step up. So I'm really excited that this is the start of not having to worry about it anymore. It's already made me feel much better, so I'm excited to see what it means when I can actually like do activities. But yeah, so I'm okay, happy and hale, and I hope you are as well. Over and out, homies.